Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Thames Community Board meeting. It's nice to see a lovely group of people in public forum. I probably should temper those remarks by waiting to hear what you say, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So, welcome, everybody. Now, as tradition within the Thames Community Board, this is our first meeting for 2024, and we'll have a Karakia. So, I'm going to ask Councillor Martin Rodley to do the Karakia today. So those people who wish to, you can be upstanding. Those who don't, you can remain seated. But okay, Martin, Karakia, please.
E ngā tohu o te rangi o te whenua. E aratiki I e matua I ngā take e whiriwhiri I e tine wha. I raro anō I te aroara a ranganui ki ranga a Papatanuku e tā koutu nei. Whakamau I a tine. Humi e, hui e, tāki e.
Thank you. So in that little preamble, I actually declared the meeting open. Through a couple of quick points that please today we've got quite a large audience out there in the world of ether. If you could use the microphones when you're coming up later on, please. It's a little push button operation, but there will be somebody here that will help you if you're not too sure. And you well, when you get that point, have a time limit of 5 minutes for speaking. We'll reiterate that when we come to that little point in the agenda. So we're going to start off, please. Any apologies? We have no apologies because everybody's around the table, so that's that. So
I would like to apologise for my appearance. It's not normal for me to wear a hat like this, but I do have a head injury which looks a lot worse than my cap.
Oh. Thank you, Councillor. It kind of makes you wonder why I never wore a cap for the last 9 months. We were talking head injuries. No, it actually, well, I don't say really, if it's you at all. It does make you look a lot older. Right. Okay, so we do have leave of absence, as you can see there. We have, and I guess in this case we'll move that we grant leave of absence.
Yeah. Like, what's it?
So I'll move that we grant leave of absence to Councillor Rebel for leave of absence between the 27th of March to the 28th of April 2024, and from the 9th of August to the 26th of August, and also to Deputy Chair Rob Johnson from the 13th of April to the 3rd of June. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Member Rakwa. Any discussion? There being none, propose to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, declared carried. There's just one moot point about there that if anybody else decides to go away between the 30th of April and the 30th of April and the 28th of April, and more than two, we won't have a quorum. So they don't go away in that week. That's the lot. Our quota's done. Okay. So we now enter into 1.3, which is public forum. And we've just had a little change in the order of people going to speak. So, again, when you come up, please come up to the front for speaking. Also speak very clearly, speak in the microphone so people can hear you, and please say your name. There you have 5 minutes. You'll get a bell at 4 minutes. We have a very tight schedule in terms of speaking thing. We have a total allocated time of 35 minutes to allow for points of clarification on things like that. So the first speaker today is Kitty Ko in the room. You can either speak from the lectern, which has got the little red light on it there, or you can be seated at the table. Which do you prefer? That one there?
Yeah, I'm good
Okay.
here. Can you hear me?
Thank you. 5 minutes starts now.
All right, hello. I think the last time I spoke, we were having a meeting about the vibe, and I came with Jason and Lydiard, and we presented about our experience of the vibe in Thames. So we wanted to return to share to you our experience since the vibe had been dismantled and what we experienced through that process, because I think it's helpful because you're looking at developing more public spaces in Thames, and yeah, we just wanted to be a part of that and share our experience. Yeah, so I think that, our experience was that the vibe was taken down for certain particular reasons. One of them was it's bad for business, and the other one was there's homeless people hanging out there, and they seem to be the two main driving forces behind why it was removed. Also that it wasn't in a good place where it was. So I'm not arguing that it was in a difficult place at this point, but I think that the idea that it was 100% good for business to remove a public space has been proven incorrect, because as Jason's going to speak to next, I think it really wasn't good for his business, and it wasn't good for the amenity of businesses that actually are relying on public space to get customers and to get business. And I think that was very clear in our experience. The other rumour or propaganda that I'd like to dispel is that getting rid of the vibe got rid of the homeless people. And I think that when I was working at the Villager at the cafe after the vibe was dismantled, I had several, I'm going to say elderly people come up to me and say, "Aren't you glad that the homeless people have gone now?" And actually I had to point out to them that the homeless people are now there across the street over there, and now they're just there at the Civic Centre there, and they're over there as well. So actually removing the vibe did not remove the homeless people. It just shifted them. It's a problem that Thames is going to have to face any time we have a public space, that there will be all sorts of different people using it, and that because there are people with mental health issues that want to hang out there in a public environment because actually they feel safe as well, it's not a reason to can a public space. It's a separate issue, and that issue is actually about people's mental health and how they are living in a town, and that's a broader issue that needs to be addressed outside of whether or not we have a public space or not. So I think, I know that public spaces are still on the agenda for Thames, and I'd just like to dispel those reasons for not having a public space, because we're going to be presented with those problems whatever we do. It's really important to have a public space in Thames, and I remember after the vibe disappeared, I went to Pairoa. I'm like, oh, there's a nice public space here in Pairoa, and it's got a little solar panel I can charge my phone on, and it's got the info centre there. And I was so surprised that actually Thames doesn't have anything like that. The other thing that I really wanted to address was to talking actually about the location and the youth in Thames. So I'm a mother of two teenagers. My son is in year 12 at Thames High, and my daughter finished school, so she's 19. So what I feel really sad for the young people in Thames is that everything closes down at 3 p.m. for 9 months of the year. So they walk out of high school and there's really nothing for them apart from KFC and McDonald's, actually, and a few takeaways. If we really want a town that is amenable to all generations, and I know there's a big elderly population, there's a big mental health population, and that gives us even more reason to consider our youth and how they are experiencing our town. I'd like to say that if I could only talk to Sue at the TBA and say, can you encourage some businesses to stay open until 4 o'clock at least, so our children are not experiencing a dead town when they come out of school. And then that comes into the public spaces, like where are we creating and locating public spaces that are good for young people in Thames. And I know there's been some talk about having a public space in Grahamstown, but I don't see the young people hanging out in Grahamstown that much. Like, I've been in this town long enough to know where the young people hang out, and they exit the high school and then they come towards the library into town, and then probably McDonald's or KFC or the skate park. So my recommendation for public spaces would to actually be to create something that's near the high school, that is at least on the path where the young people can actually go and enjoy the public space, and that it becomes a place where they can hang out after school, something that's vibrant, and somewhere that they can get enjoyment out of being in the town. And I think that's really important.
There being no questions, thank you very much.
All right,
I appreciate
thank you,
your
everybody.
presentation. Well done. Jason, Lydia, please. Jason, if you hear that sort of little noise, it's not that you're at Auckland Airport, it's the fact you've got 1 minute left to go.
Okay, I'm not being paged. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Chairman, councillors, members of the public. My name is Jason Lydiard. I'm the owner of the Villager Cafe on Mary Street, where the vibe was. And there's two things I sort of want to cover off today, and that is just sharing my story about the interaction with the public space, and hopefully we can pull some learnings out of that about the role I played in it and what I learned from it, and then talk a little bit about a particular story of one of the homeless people that I befriended and tried to help there. And the last thing I'll do is put out an invitation for you guys to invite me to be part of the next planning committee that is involved in public spaces. I feel like now I've got some authority, I've had some experience with public spaces, and I know the people around here, when the vibe was there, they called me the mayor of the vibe. I quite like that title, and I'd love to have it again. Okay, right. So one of the key factors when I bought the cafe was the fact there was a public space there. When I bought the cafe off the owner reassured me, yes, that public space is permanent, it's going to stay there. And that led me into sort of thinking about how I could offer my services outside of my cafe into that public space. So what I started doing was every day I would come to work and I'd dress up the vibe. I would lay it out and put the umbrellas up, I'd put the beanbags up, and I'd basically open the doors of it for people to come and enjoy that space. And then I'd run back inside the cafe, set the cafe up, and get underway for the day. People responded really well to that. They liked the fact that when they came to town, the public space looked like it was activated, looked like there was things going on. And straight away, normally after I opened it, within 5 or 10 minutes, you have people interacting with it. So I think that's one important thing to think about in the future with public spaces, is that the space kind of needs a champion or a group of champions that are really engaged with activating it every day, making sure picking up rubbish, simple things like that, making sure, like what may have been left out overnight, like beer cans, rubbish, drink bottles, takeaway boxes, all that sort of stuff is just taken care of, just gets mopped up, and it looks neat and tidy, ready for the day ahead. So once a public space is public, yep, anyone in the town can use it, and that means you are going to get the whole sort of spectrum of people using it, all the way from those that sleep out rough, all the way to those that are travelling from Auckland to visit their batch in Pawanui. You're going to get that really broad spectrum there. So you have to think about that and make sure that that's going to be okay, and everyone's going to be okay with that level of engagement, even young people engaging in that space as well. And that's where I sort of championed the vibe. I did an enormous amount of work with the police coming back into the new year to get this vibe settled. There are a number of undesirables that no one in town liked. And I took it under my wing to basically build a strong enough case to have them removed from town, and now they're not allowed back in Thames because of the work I did with the police to get that. The observations I made, the phone calls to the police, and the follow-up to have that done. So I think it's something I learned that, yep, you're going to get members of the public engaging in the space, but it sort of needs a champion. A lot of people came to me and said, Jason, if I want to put this event on here or do this here in that public space, who do I go and see? Now, I know the council website has got that information on there, that documentation on there, but probably something to really promote once a new public space goes up in Thames, is to publicly, make it clear and everyone aware about where they want to engage with that space, exactly how to do it. So that it doesn't sort of go missing. Because I felt the vibe was an area, thank you, Adrian, the vibe was an area that was really underutilised. It was really underutilised. We had a Christmas market in there. I think that was one of the major events, which was a huge success for businesses, for stall holders, for the members of the public. They raved about that. So I think there was plenty of opportunity there with the space, plenty of opportunity missed with the space. So let's see next time we can get it right. Here's my invitation now to invite me onto the planning committee for your next public space. I would love to be involved. On design level, consultation level, and just as an ideas person. Yeah, great. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jason. Just touching on one aspect of the vibe. So with the container that was there, how did you see that being used? I know sometimes there would tend to sort of be some extra stuff stored there, and but how would you see a container like that being able to be utilised better?
Yep, absolutely. First thing is, if we're going to drop a space like a container on there, please provide it with power. Yeah, okay, that was one thing that meant that, let's say, musicians or artists or entertainers or things that needed access to power, the public space didn't have any power outlets. I actually provided the power out of my cafe for performers, events, things like that, for the Christmas market. All sorts of things. I think the only time that the container was actually powered up was for the Christmas lights over Christmas. And then it was turned off. So I think if you're going to activate a building on the site, on the public space, just make sure it's got the basics there, like power and maybe some water.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Adrian.
Really appreciate your comments. Okay, the next speaker would be, glasses on. Greg. Next speaker will be Greg Laslett. I hope that pronounced that correctly. And Greg is online. That must be GL. So, Greg, are you there? Did you mute him?
Greg, can you hear us? There we go.
Sure. Thank you, people.
Excellent.
Coming through now.
5 minutes. Starting now. Go.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, all. My name's Greg Laslett. okay, I guess my family's been in Thames for probably since just before World War II. I have a lot to do with local walking tracks, and I'd basically like to present today about the local coastal tracks, and essentially putting in a bit of a reminder that these are actually council responsibility. So there is a dance between council and DOC and various trusts about the maintenance and health of walking tracks, well, in New Zealand, but specifically on the Coromandel. And there's been like a lot of damage recently on our coastal tracks. Particularly, I'm going to talk today about Tararoo, where there's a slip that needs some remediation. There's been an ongoing conversation with roading and whatever, and what needs to happen is some drainage mitigation at this site, and we think some appropriate tree planting. There is, so if we I don't know, can I share? Can I share screen to you guys?
Sorry, what was the question, Greg?
Can I share screen to you guys?
Yes.
Oh, yep, here we go.
It's on the screen now.
Yep. Okay, so we have basically a briefing of the walking track network in behind Thames and through to the Pinnacles Hut in Corrigan. On the left there, you will see Tararoo. Okay, the reason I'm talking about Tararoo today is its general importance in that it's the only coastal track that allows quite a deep penetration into the hills, and that's because your starting point is so high. There's an ongoing background conversation about a quote great walk, which would involve opening up this yellow section here, which essentially would allow a cross-peninsula walk with a number of sites to stay. That's been a central government and DOC conversation for probably at easily 5 years now. It may yet happen under the current government, but today I'm sort of basically giving you a bit of background context there, because like we need to do some work at Tararoo here. Right, so let's come here. Okay, at the very beginning of the walking track, at the end of Victoria Road up the hill, we've got some slip damage that's occurred here. It's on the legal road, so it falls under council responsibility. We would like to get a conversation basically underway about some drainage mitigation in here, and probably a conversation with the landowner above about probably planting some poplars. That would be the permanent solution. Because if we now go to this is about 7 years ago. A previous owner of the land cleared this paddock, which essentially started an erosion situation into the creek. There's sort of basically a need for some education and remediation here. Today, this is now all overgrown with gorse, and gorse does not pull water. So we have water down on the track, which is down in here. Okay, yep, and okay, and the further background is that there have been a number of submissions to council probably over the last few years, including 2 long-term plan submissions in 2018 about long-term maintenance of coastal tracks. I think now is the time for council to act on this. Open to questions.
Yeah, we're just waiting to see your face back on the screen first.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Okay, any questions from the board? Yes, there's one from Councillor Rebel.
Thanks for that, Greg. There's a number of things there where you said the council need to do something. Have you lodged a request for service through the council's system, alerting them to the fact there's some work that they need to attend to?
Okay, there's been several of those over time. I'm not aware of any having been acted on, but not recently, and certainly would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I think that would at least get the detail of what needs to be done into the council system for the appropriate people to look at.
Yep.
Deputy Chair, I see you move the microphone close to yourself. Okay, sorry, Councillor Rodley.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Are you able to make those pictures, maps that you showed us, are you able to make those available?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, part of that's already been sent to Rob. Okay, but I can certainly make those pictures available, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Deputy Chair Rob.
Greg, previously you said that you had a memorandum of understanding with the council about track maintenance and all the rest of it. Would you, and I think you said you'd like to reinstate that if possible. Can you just maybe about that?
Yes, okay. Background to that is New Zealanders like their walking tracks. There is an overarching organisation called the Backcountry Trust with something like 50,000 members and probably a core of 1,000 volunteer workers, where local authorities and DOC allow track maintenance. This is basically usually just in the form of vegetation management, but it can elevate to small structures like little bridges or huts. Where that's allowed, you will find that there is actually quite a big volunteer base to like do minor works on walking tracks. So in the past, walking clubs and trusts have been involved on the Coromandel, but your roading people declined to renew our MOU, and that was a conversation about a year ago. And they were worried about safety, even though there is like a national-wide insurance regime and DOC backing in place, because like we've been doing this nearly 15 years. So look, yeah, thank you for prompting me on that, Rob.
Thank you, Greg. We'll try and get that sort of onto an action schedule of some sort, or at least follow it up anyway. Thank you.
Greg, just I gather that those tracks you showed us are north of the Tararoo stream, are they?
Okay. No, they would be east of the Tararoo stream.
Oh, right.
Oh, wait on. Sorry. You mean the big picture, or the slip area specifically?
The slip area.
Yes, just north, which is the legal road line.
So this is all council-owned land in there, is it?
Well, certainly the legal road is. Its history is that it was a vehicular road through the 1950s, probably up until something like the mid-1980s. So the ground there is actually still paved in places. Okay. Maintenance of that as a vehicular road was like progressively withdrawn till the point of about mid-1990s, where a lot of general responsibility for the area was handed over to DOC. but of course the roads remain council responsibility.
Okay, Greg. Just one last question. Can you please send the copy of the memorandum of understanding to our Deputy Chair Johnson, please?
As in the previous one?
Yes, please.
Yes,
So
can
we
do.
can follow up on why they didn't renew it.
Yeah.
But thank you for your presentation. Well done.
Yep.
In this techie world.
Okay. Further questions? No.
That's a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
It's not mastermind. Right. The next speaker today is our Cadet Unit Commander, Wesley Wright St. Clair, or Flight Lieutenant or Lieutenant. So welcome, Leslie, or Wes, I think they call you.
Wes. So my official title is Flight Lieutenant Wesley Wright St. Clair. However, Wes will be sufficient. Thanks.
Yeah. I like the full version.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, board members. So I just wish to thank the Thames Community Board to be able to speak in order to begin a consideration process. I have provided the transcript for this if so desired to read later as a point of reference. So favourable consideration could perhaps lead to granting number 37 Thames Squadron Air Training Corps privilege of a ceremonial charter for the freedom of Thames. A ceremonial charter is not something that's requested lightly, and we wish it to be taken for serious consideration. I've come to represent not only the unit as it stands today, but as a representative for the past 60 years of the unit's existence. So, number 37 Squadron is a unit of the Air Training Corps, the Air Force affiliated branch of the New Zealand Cadet Forces, or NZCF. It's a voluntary, disciplined and uniformed training organisation for the Earth in New Zealand. The unit itself has currently over 20 cadets. This number is expected to increase over the next few weeks due to a recruitment drive, 4 staff and numerous other support personnel in the form of a unit support committee. Our mission is to develop and enable self-disciplined, confident and responsible young New Zealanders. By way of background, the cadet movement in New Zealand was created in 1864. That makes it the oldest youth development organisation in the country. Our core values, which are instilled in cadets and officers throughout their involvement in training, are courage, commitment, comradeship and integrity. Our role is to provide training courses and programs for our members, both cadets and officers, similar to those undertaken by the New Zealand Defence Force, or NZDF. These include, but not limited to, leadership training, citizenship training, ceremonial drill, first aid, power flying and gliding, outdoors training, risk management, instructional technique training, and other activities in a challenging, safe, and disciplined environment. It's important to note, however, that members of the unit, and by extension the NZCF as a whole, are not members of the NZDF, but the NZCF is, the NZDF is directed by the Defence Act to establish and support us. Membership in the NZCF places no compulsion or obligation to its members to join the NZDF. As part of the support from the NZDF, each cadet unit is required to have a local community-based unit support committee, which is charged for the responsibility for finances and helping the unit where needed. Typically, membership comprises of parents of cadets, members of the New Zealand Return and Service Association, and other interested persons and parties. In essence, a cadet unit is a partnership between volunteers, the NZDF, and the community. Beginning to explain the concept of freedom of the city, or borough, or town as applicable, feels it was originally an ancient honour that was bestowed upon martial organisations or military units. A military unit did not have automatic right to march and camp within a city's confines. Freedom of the city was only conferred to those units that had gained the trust of the local populace, either through valiant deeds or being a familiar beneficial presence. Today, a martial freedom of the city is purely ceremonial, usually conferred to a military unit or martial organisation with historic and current ties to an area. Granting of a charter often includes a parade inspected by a mayor and is granted via resolution by council. In the context of what's being asked here, a ceremonial charter would establish the unit as being formally recognised as being part of this community, having been operating for the past 60 years. A large number of the Air Training Corps units in New Zealand gained a charter from their local body approximately in the 1990s, in line with the Golden Jubilee of the Air Training Corps. But for reasons unknown, this unit has not pursued the possibility of a charter until now. There's been a great number of youth come through the unit in the past 60 years from this community, and it'd be safe to say that an overwhelming majority of past and present members would attest that being part of the unit has had a positive impact on their lives, giving them tools to be successful and productive citizens. In a time where youth are often perceived as being at risk or vulnerable, it is important that we take notice of those youth and give them an opportunity to dare to take the challenge with us and come out on the other end with an increased sense of mana, life skills, and a sense of belonging. Naturally, there have been many from the unit from the years who have gone into trades in the NZDF. For example, pilots in the Air Force, marine technicians in the Navy, and drivers in the Army. I'd also like to attest to those who have used their skills they have learned with the unit to help get into certain other areas, such as with Air New Zealand, the police, senior managers with Bank of New Zealand, electrical and plumbing roles, psychologists, just to name a few. Some have even gone to have roles previously with this council. I can speak personally of my day-to-day job as a mentor/account manager for electrical apprentices, which my area includes covering the Thames Coromandel district. This role I would not have been able to carry out were it not for the skills I started learning at this unit 18 years ago. A charter would also highlight an opportunity to springboard an effort to engage even more with our community where appropriate. We're avid supporters of Anzac Day, Poppy Day, Battle of Britain commemorations, and Armistice Day. We have begun to engage more with the local RSA branch, the Hauraki Era Club, and the Battle of Britain Memorial Trust. All we ask with this is that we be given time to plan and for the acknowledgement that we're all volunteers. We're going with the best intentions to carry out tasks to the best of our ability and availability. The ideal timeframe for which a ceremonial charter for the Freedom of Thames, should in the future it is decided to be granted, is by December this year. This would hopefully allow for time for inquiries and preparation as required. Again, I thank you for allowing me to share in this public forum, and I wish all the best for future deliberations on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Flight Lieutenant. Any questions from the board? Yes, Councillor Rebel.
Thanks for that. Interesting concept. What is the entry criteria for people to be a cadet?
So they must be 13 to 15 years old or attending high school. So the age range is from 13 or attending high school to 20 years of age. After that point, they can they'll either move on, become a staff member, or they can be an officer. So.
Councillor Sinclair.
So you can't remember my name. Thank you for that presentation. I'm just aware that you've used the word ceremonial, but is there any practical implication of having the Freedom of Thames for you or for us?
Because the implication of saying that there would be that to say there was an obligation saying that for the council, I think it would be unfair on the council to say that you have an obligation to do something, and hence the term that it's purely ceremonial. It's a recognition in a different sense that someone might look at it as a key to the city in a rough translation, as it were. The reason why I've used the concept of a charter of the Freedom City is because in terms of us being affiliated as a military style organisation associated with the NZDF, it would be in terms of being appropriate. So. Yeah.
Just wondering about the geographical range of your cadets. Are they all from Thames? Or
so we also have cadets from the Hauraki district as well. So we do recruit not only from Thames but also from Paeroa and Ngatea and the surrounding areas.
Any other board member questions? I can only commend the Air Training Corps at the airfield when I'm going out and doing my weekly inspections of the runway. I see them training I see them training out there, and it's an amazing group. And in my former life as deputy mayor, I used to do the parade inspections on behalf of the mayor, and I just think it's a fantastic organisation. So in this town, best of my knowledge, the SAS has the freedom of Thames, and they can march down the street with flags flying, banners drawn, and drums beating. But that's not what you're requesting, is it? I hope.
No,
In
there
this
will
day
be
and
no
age.
bayonets fitting.
But no, thank you very much. It's a very good presentation, and the board will discuss it at a later date and make a recommendation to Thames Conrad District Council. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Has anybody got any objections? No, you haven't. That's good. Anybody got any objections if we extend the time for public forum, please? Being none, I propose to extend the time for public forum. We still have 4 people to speak. So the next speaker is Helen Feller. Have I got that correct? Helen Feller, would you please come up to the front?
Morena Atamarie, Helen Feller. I'm actually revisiting the householders petition proposing 5G technology within 350 metres from private homes. I presented last December the 12th, 2023 at the council meeting, along with 3 others from Coromandel on matching concerns. The TCDC, you have a copy of the original petition. They also have copies of our compelling international scientific evidence-based research we supplied for the December the 12th meeting, warning against long-term exposure to the radiation fields generated by cell towers using 4 to 5G electromagnetic frequencies. Included were 2 excellent short videos. Council's legal team informed me the TCDC does not wish to further engage on this topic, sadly, as they're satisfied with the Ministry of Health information on 5G. However, there's many in Thames opposing this rollout, and I'd like to know if any of you in this room has done your own independent research on 5G wavelengths other than what your legal team and Ministry of Health has provided.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the board, please? So
we continue to be really concerned about the health implications of 5G technology, and our concerns can be verified and supported by many studies and sound research. Health and safety must come first, and it's wise to invoke the precautionary principle at an early stage when there is a possible threat to the public. We're still very disappointed there hasn't been any general announcement of the proposed 5G rollout from One New Zealand or any public consultation. I will list some more evidence of the health and environmental effects of 5G with supporting information and references. There are 25 references which I won't read out. They're all written on email I sent you. So further evidence of harm from the non-thermal microwave frequency EMF/EMR 5G can include attack on our nervous systems, including our brains, leading to widespread neurological, neuropsychiatric effects and possibly many other effects. Attack on our endocrine and hormonal systems. Production of oxidative stress and free radical damage, which has central roles in essentially all chronic diseases. Damage to the DNA of our cells. Production of elevated levels of apoptosis, which is a programmed cell death. Lowered male and female fertility, production of excessive intracellular calcium, general cancer risk due to the cell disruption, life-threatening cardiac effects, very early onset dementias, including Alzheimer's. EMF exposures in utero and shortly after birth can cause ADHD and autism. Disruption of the natural environment, i.e. pollinating insect behaviour. Damage to people who are already disabled with electro-hypersensitivity. Damage to pregnant women. Damage to growing children who have more vulnerable physiology. Included 25 references. So we're mindful of our council's fiduciary obligations under the Local Government Act, duty of care to have regard for our views. I know that community boards give a voice to specific communities within a council catchment and act as representatives, advocates and connectors to those communities. I thought, therefore, that one of the community board's main roles are to represent and act as advocates for the interests of its community and their concerns. Thanks for your consideration in this serious matter.
Right, I'll try this time. Any questions, please, from the board? There being none, oh, sorry. Deputy Chair.
I read your letter and I looked at the references and did some looking around at some of the research data as well. I'm sort of, you've already taken this to council as I understand it, and were advised by council legal that they felt that the Ministry of Health New Zealand, and they wouldn't have been acting alone, they would have been acting and looking at World Health Organization stuff as well. How is it that you think that, or what's pushing you to believe that Ministry of Health or World Health Organization don't have the best interests of people at heart, and somehow your research is of a comparative or compelling quality to say that in fact they're wrong? That's the part I don't quite understand, you know.
Good question, but we've seen effects in the world from World Health Organization and Ministry of Health that aren't so good, just promoting perhaps medications or injections that have harmed people. So I'm talking about independent research from people who care for human health, care for the earth, and actually see first-hand evidence, particularly in other countries when 5G is rolled out. The effects are seen and they build up over time. The independent research away from government and corporate bodies. They don't have an interest, corporate interest or a financial interest.
So if I understand you correctly, it's you feel that there are corporate interests and other interests of financial nature that are overriding, you know, the health issues for people, and that governments are somehow complicit in that, you know, and therefore will let this happen. What about the financial costs if a lot of people get ill?
I think Deputy Chair, your speech is about, your question is about as long as the presentation.
So I'm listening. Yeah, I think governments need to listen to a wide variety of people. Thanks.
Councillor Rebel, did you wish to ask a question? Well, your light's on, that's all. Okay. Is there any 5G towers in the Thames ward, please?
Are there any 5G towers?
In the Thames ward.
I think there are. I don't know how. I don't know. Can anyone help me on that question? Are there 5G?
So we're immune from the things you've been telling us?
It's the rollout from One New Zealand. One New Zealand, which was Vodafone. They are rolling out more technology purportedly.
Right.
So we don't know when this will be, but it involves different kinds of technology.
Councillor Sinclair wished to ask you a question.
Thank you, Helen. So one of the reasons that I understand that there is trying to, the telcos, I guess all of them, are trying to roll out this better technology is that the landline technology is proving to be less than adequate. And so, you know, just thinking with a disaster and emergency management hat on, have you got any suggestions if we're not allowed to build cell towers, and so connectivity is going to be an issue for the parts of our peninsula that are hard to get to? And have you got any suggestions about how we can communicate effectively with the holiday peak population, with visitors from overseas who would ordinarily be getting pinged about emergencies on their phones if we're not able to sort of roll the technology out so that 100% of our district is covered? Because that's my big concern, is that if we've got large pockets of places that are not being connected by 5G towers or increased connectivity, that we all of a sudden have a large amount of our population, our visiting population, in that surge of summer, who are extremely vulnerable to not having any information about cyclones, tsunamis. Have you got any comment on how we could maybe communicate effectively if we're not allowed to use cell technology?
Well, does not the 4G, does that not cover those needs? 4G, which we have at the moment.
My understanding is that all the new towers are being 5G. So are you saying that it would be okay to put cell towers to connect for increased connectivity as long as they're not 5G?
And that's another topic of where they're placed.
Okay.
Like I acknowledge, of course, communication and urgent communication has to be wide and covering everybody.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's just some of the other associated technology with 5G, which can be around the streets, it can be attached to various lampposts close to people's houses. I'm going back to my petition, the petition about the technology not being close to people's houses within this 350 radius.
Okay, we might have to
Not
call a
going
halt to your
impose
answer
safety for the community.
and ask you to finish, please.
Yeah.
Because your answer's morphing into more. Oh,
Thank you.
Wait on, Councillor Rodley. Do you wish to ask a question?
Yes, I have to be careful to make sure I ask a question and not a statement. So,
Correct.
Are you aware that the 5G coverage in Thames on a coverage map here looks like it goes from the middle of the Thames CBD down to just over the other side of the Kovu Bridge on the state highway only?
Okay, that's a no. Okay, thank you very much.
I'd like more information about the 5G coverage. As a member of the public, I haven't had much information on the 5G rollout in Thames. It's all suspicions and questions, and that's really, if we can be informed.
In essence of time, we're going to have to call a halt.
I'm vague on where it is at
There's
the
other
moment.
people waiting to speak, and I just call a halt on your speech, and we'll continue on. But you may,
informed.
I'm sure, very important to some, I'm sure that you could probably find that information more readily from other sources than asking the community board. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Teague, please, Dennis Teague. Welcome, Mr. Teague. You got the message about the 5 minutes and then call it 4, haven't you?
Maria Chair and board members, my name is Dennis Tegg. So the feasibility study in your agenda paper identifies flood risk as a quote-unquote fatal flaw when considering capital expenditure of maybe 40 or 60 million for a swimming pool. So it's very pleasing indeed, and congratulations to the board that none of the options that have been identified are in either a coastal or a river floodplain. The switch this on.
Oh, we have limited use on that. It's only for certain people.
So
there we go.
Which one do I push here?
Our governance officer will come up and help you.
Okay, maybe my time can reset from now.
True politician.
So this is the this is the flood maps from the shoreline management plan and showing the Thames High School site. And you'll see that even there, with like this, maybe with 0.8 of the sea level rise, it's marginally at risk. So hopefully it will last, the 40 or 50 years of design life. But I want to go on and just outline some of the risks of why this is such a serious issue, and these are the topics I'll cover. The first is that Thames already today has extreme flood risk. And those blue areas on the map, and I've shown Pollen Street and Rolleston Street for reference, are present day 1 in 20 year flood events. So it's quite extreme already. But it's even worse when you factor in this land subsidence on the foreshore. And it's been measured all along the foreshore, not just at Monotari. Now the issue about that is that that extra adding of subsidence means that extreme flooding occurs 3 decades earlier than otherwise and 25 times more often. And this graph from NZ Sea Rise explains that a bit more. So the lower line is without subsidence, the top line with, that doubles the rate. And then if you factor in how often these events happen, then they'll be happening 4 yearly by the 2030s. That's again 3 decades earlier. So this is a now problem. This is a very serious issue for now. There are some consequences for seawalls. There's new research suggesting that seawalls might fail, 100% chance of failure from these more frequent events. And these are new maps that just came through to the Regional Council on groundwater susceptibility, groundwater flooding. You can see the wastewater pipes and buildings at risk. So the issue I'd raise with you is, will a seawall actually prevent groundwater and that flooding? And we already know that king tides already flood parts of Thames. We know there are contaminants in the soil and from closed landfills. We know there are underground pipes which can be put at risk. So the real issue maybe is, will groundwater flooding and the risk to that infrastructure cause retreat earlier than, say, building a wall and worrying about whether it comes over the top of the wall? The next issue is just how expensive this all is. And so this study from the council's consultants, if you add it up for the Thames ward, and that's for a 1 in 100 year event in 100 years, so it will be staged, it won't be that amount initially, but there are a lot of exclusions even from that figure. So these are huge amounts of money. And so who pays for that? Well, traditionally, for a flood scheme, say on the Karakia Plains, 75% of the cost is borne by the ratepayers who directly benefit from the wall, and the other 25% from the rest of the community. Realistically, is that really affordable for the small number of coastal ratepayers who will directly benefit? And again, realistically, will the government come to the party when this is just one small community around our coast and there are literally dozens, hundreds of others? So some really serious issues to consider. So these are the messages I'd like to leave with you, that we need better data on these things I've raised. We need to defer capital works on the most at-risk parts of the town, such as the CBD. Don't want to lock in the seawall option until we know where the government stands on whether they might have a managed retreat law and provide some funding. Need to proceed at pace with the spatial plan because that gives options for an alternative. So big issues are coming much more quickly than we might imagine, and we really need to take them seriously in terms of your decision making. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Teague. Any questions? Councillor Rodley.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. I was trying to remember, like in that slide there, you're saying about more data coming soon. Was there a new system that's going to have more specific?
Good question.
Specificity?
So the NZ Sea Rise study basically had points about 2 kilometres around the entire New Zealand coast, and they measured subsidence from satellite data. The latest data measures it at 180 metres, so you could actually identify individual properties. And when I was on the regional council, I pushed hard that NZC Rise and the regional council get that data and TCDC, and it got lost in the flood work, you know, from Gabriel and all that, and it didn't actually happen. I understand that it's now back on the table. So it may be quite soon we can get that data. You'll be able to confirm just exactly where that subsidence is happening. And Thames is an unusual case, and I hope we can get a test case, because you have the scenario where the immediate foreshore where there's been reclaimed is subsiding, and those hills over there are rising. So you've got this thing going on geotechnically. And so it's quite a complex area. But the fact that it's rising on the hills over there doesn't save the fact that it's sinking on the foreshore. And once we know the rate, you know, is it 5 millimetres? Maybe it's more. And certainly there's been measurements taken at Moanatari that suggest it was sort of 7 or 8 millimetres. So this is really crucial information that we need, because it affects the timing of when these events happen quite dramatically.
Thank you.
Councillor Sinclair.
It's nice to see you in person, Dennis, rather than on the screen.
Yeah, thanks.
So just getting back to the decision that we have to make today as a community board. So you're advocating on this slide to defer major capital works. And you list the CBD upgrade, but the decision that we're being asked is to proceed with a business case to decide and give a preferred location for the pool. So have you got anything to say about our decision today in regard to what you've presented with us?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. You know, I thought long and hard about it. I think the tennis court side I could live with, because if you look at that first slide, and I'll circulate that to you, you've probably got at least 40 or 50 years before that might flood from the sea. So that's the usual design life of a swimming pool. And the main advantage I see from that site there is it's accessible. We have a rapidly ageing population in Thames. A lot of them don't have licences and can't drive, so the ability to walk or cycle or get the bus to the swimming pool, I think, is a really important issue. So overall, I think I would support that site, yes. It's marginal though, you know.
Okay. Any further questions of Mr. Teague, please? Thank you. That was quite a good presentation. In fact, I'm going down to a real estate agent and put my business up for sale, I think, after watching that.
Well, it's not uncommon.
No. Still. Anyway. Mr. Alan Young, please. Welcome, Mr. Young.
Thank you. Morning, councillors. I'm here representing...
And board, because councillor's number 3.
Distinguished people. I'm here representing Karakia Prospectors Gold Mine Experience that's down the other end of Thames. And I'd like to thank the community board for the amount of effort and support that they've put behind, and together with the Business Association in Thames, to promote Thames for the summer, and the amount of support that the council and the community board have given the work crews around the area that have opened the area up with the new bridge up the Hikawai and works down the coast to keep the tourists flowing into the area. We at Karakia Prospectors have had a huge season this year. We have had well over 2,000 people in 40 days into here. We've put a lot of work into it, and we're putting a lot of work into expanding the place. And as part of the expansion, we're asking community board and the chief executive and the mayor to meet with us to try and get the recreational historic reserve expanded around our area, in the area that we hold our mining licence. And to do this, we're working with DOC, who have stewardship over the government land, because we have some mining gear that is not relevant to Thames. And it will be swapped for that land to be passed over, not to Karakia prospectors, but to TCDC as a historic recreational reserve. And that would expand on the historic recreational reserve that the council has in their control at the moment. And that is just one of the things. All our income that we get gets ploughed back into the place down there. And huge days, steam days, glory days. And at the moment, there's only 8 or 10 of us volunteers. 4 of them are OBE. And our first and foremost objectives are historic and education. And as part of the education, there's probably 2,500 school kids a year come through there on organised trips. But our first thing that we want out of the way at the moment is this land transferred to TCDC to add on to the historic recreational reserve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Young. Is there, Councillor Rodley?
No, thank you, Alan. Is there like about 3 or 4 different titles or parcels of land? And doesn't one actually split the main building almost in half?
One splits the main building in half, but it also, that particular title or parcel of land, which was an RSL,
which is a
residential site licence, with the Lands and Survey Department, DOC have stewardship over it. But that also crosses over the Monotiri Creek Road, which is a council-owned road, and it would be an advantage that the council actually had control of that.
Mm.
Oh, right, it does.
Okay, is there any other questions, board members? I think that you've actually raised this with me earlier in the time. I think it really a very important subject, and I think that we will have to have a consultation between the Prospectors Association, DOC, and the CEO and the mayor, and maybe some of the board members, because in that area. But for me, it's a no-brainer that we've got to do it. And I think I'd be fair to say on behalf of the community board that we thoroughly enjoyed our tour through the Stafford Battery, using the old term, and we wish you well going forward, because it's an amazing effort. I've watched it grow over the years, and it's just incredible what you've done, all, you know, with just labour, volunteers. Okay, anybody else got any questions? No?
Well,
sorry? It was a question, and the answer I got from you.
Just to put you in the picture, the negotiation for this is well underway. And
yep.
It's
thank you.
Done at high levels with DOC. So we just asked that we can get a meeting with TCDC.
We'll facilitate that for you.
Very good.
Okay, no problem. So just like keep it brief.
Thank you.
Actually, when you're chair, Councillor Revel, you can have a chance to speak at longer times. Until then. Okay, thank you. Our last speaker today for a public forum is Bruce Efford, please. And because you're here so often, we don't have to remind you of the 5 minutes, do we?
The little spiel that you have at the welcoming has often concerned me in the fact that it is perhaps not along the lines of what is and has been past historically used in governments for opening their meetings. New Zealand was being run by the Maori tribes, and because of the non-kindness to each other and the way the northern and the eastern Maoris used to come down to the Coromandel and their actions here, it was really quite a unpleasant place. In actual fact, it's written in history that cannibalism was often used here on the Coromandel due to the tastiness of the locals. But at any rate, the Maoris invited, a chief from the North tribes invited Samuel Marsden to come to New Zealand in the 1820s to bring missionaries here to bring peace to a warfaring and cannibalistic country. That was because they knew that the Utu tribes were planning to go and take over the far north tribes or have a warfare up there. And then in the 1840s, and I am giving you historic because it's something that people have forgotten, and it's not any longer written in a lot of our history. It has been taught in schools. In the 1840s, that once again, the Maoris went to the missionaries and asked, could somebody please help clarify or help them between the English government and the Queen to bring peace and protection over New Zealand against the other people on the high seas and also amongst themselves. And this was once again succeeded, hence was the beginning of the government in New Zealand. But we were still dependent until the early 1900s, and we were classed as a dominion, not as a country of our own. When they started their government, they always opened their meetings with the Lord's Prayer. This has been dropped now because of politically incorrect. They actually should be historically correct, not politically anything, because they're voted in and out. And I read the one done today. There are various reasons why I find it uncomfortable to hear. There's one, often the people reading it don't fully really understand what that prayer was meant to have been done. And the translation that comes through it shows no respect or follow-up of what the history is. And that is that it is the Christian aspect, because the Fourth Amendment to the Treaty of Waitangi, which was not actually written and handed out like the other three were, was that the people of the day would have their religious beliefs upheld at all times. And in Puri, over 200 years ago, was when they had their service, and that was attended by the missionary that came down, and 100 people were there. They were all Maori people. They already knew the hymns and the Bible verses that were being read. So when they went to have, it was, as I say, it was in 1823 when they came. They already knew before the government was started, so therefore their religious beliefs at that time was very much through the South Island and North Island a Christian belief. I would like to ask that perhaps the community board would consider either bringing back the prayer, the Lord's Prayer, or perhaps having whoever writes their other one, that it actually is on a Christian belief, not on a belief that was not actually upheld at the time when our governance was done. And on that note, I'd just like to give a blessing to you all, a Christian-based blessing. Lord, I ask that you will shine your light upon these people that come here to make the decisions for our community, for our ratepayers, and that they will at all times have open mind that is honest and truthful for what is the outcome for the people of this community, not for personal gain and not for any other reason than the fact that you watch over them and you care for each and every one of these people making these decisions. In the name of your Son, Lord Jesus Christ, who died to give us the everlasting life, may we all be honest to one another and care for each other unconditionally and unjudgmentally, and take respect at all times for other people's beliefs. In the Lord's name, amen. And may 2024 be a positive year, one that we see our community cares and follows the reasons why things have been put where they are and for what reason they were put there. Thank you.
Councillor Rebel, seconded by Deputy Chair Johnson. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, declared carried. Oh, is that, you weren't moving at all? Never lift your hand up. Never lift your hand up. So you don't want to be the mover? No, I was. Okay, we'll put that again. Someone care to move that the people in the public forum speakers be noted? I know, but we. So do we have a mover? You are. Oh, well, then the motion will stand. Thank you. I'll speak to you during the break. Well, yeah, we did that. All in favour, please aye. Those against, no. We did that. Do it very slowly. Right. Item 1.6. Oh, sorry. I've just been corrected. Item 1.4. Any matters not on the agenda that you want to add? No. 1.6. Oh, God. I'm trying to rush this through. Oh, my sugar levels are dropping. Sorry. Sorry, team. Okay, 1.5. Conflict of interest. Anybody got a conflict of interest around the table today? No? Gee, I knew that. Okay, now 1.6. The minutes of the last meeting confirmation, please.
Just through the chair, there was a omission from the last set of minutes.
An amendment to the minutes. So, has that been circulated? Oh, it was sent out last night. You
Yep,
received
that was emailed to the board last night.
As email, okay. You received the amendment to the minutes? A correction, I should say, a correction. Yes, Councillor Sinclair.
I'm happy to move them, but I do have a question about an item that's listed on page 7 of the agenda. Totara Valley Road Service Extension. A report on the Totara Valley Road land acquisitions would be presented to the board for consideration at the February 2024 meeting. That's not the case, but we have been presented something in public excluded in council, so I was really just asking if the board can be updated about that, if they're allowed to be, because it was a public excluded. I can find out. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. Have you all got that little one to slot in for it's 5.1, which is allocation Thames Community Board 2023-24 discretionary budget, and it's under option 3, and it becomes now item 5. $3,330 to purchase 24 Christmas flag banners. All noted that? Okay. With that addition to go into the minutes, I'll move the minutes as being a true and correct record of the meeting of the 10th Community Board on 29th of November 2023, and I'll take, I'm doing it because I because it's an alteration gone into it. And I'll take Councillor Sinclair as a seconder on that, please. Any further discussion on that matter? I propose to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, I declare it carried. Just bear with me while I sign that as being correct. Yes, I think. So I propose, because that was a very long public forum, I propose we have a 10-minute recess, and we'll be back in here at, what time, please? 10 minutes, please. 11:30, there you are. Back in here 11:30.